Hey guys! Welcome to the Common Denominator. Okay muna magsalita sa pa-intro. Go!
The podcast where faith, doubt, and a little bit of existential crisis all sit at the same table.
Whether you're here to question, explore, or just vibe with us, congrats, you're in the right place.
This is God, Guilt, and Growing Beyond Belief, a Filipino podcast on Decolonizing Faith.
Where we unpack what it means to navigate faith outside of rigid structures, challenge what we've been taught, and figure out how spirituality can exist beyond guilt and fear.
Okay, my turn naman kasi ako yung may subject na Theo for. So, before settling on this topic, religion, spirituality, and faith have always been an integral part of my life. When this activity was given to us for our theology class, I had so many thoughts because saan ako magsisimula? Then I remember the book and now movie, Conclave. The scene where Cardinal Lawrence delivered a striking speech about doubt hit me hard, and it made me realize just how relevant this discussion is today. We live in a time kasi when faith is evolving, with a progressive pope leading the Catholic Church as it finds its footing in a contemporary world. Faith is no longer just an institution. Faith is a living thing. It grows, it questions, it challenges. And I think that's why this conversation matters, especially when you look at it through the lens of the marginalized, like women, the LGBTQIA+ community, basically the unheard voices, the doubters, and those who exist outside the quote-unquote norm. This topic hits different because for many of us, faith is more than just belief. It's tied to identity, history, and survival. In the Philippines, faith isn't just personal. It's historical, cultural, and, let's be honest, political. But what happens when faith no longer fits who we are? When it becomes something to question rather than just accept? The Philippines is one of the most Catholic countries in the world. But before colonization, our ancestors saw power in women. The Babaylan, our healers and spiritual leaders, they weren't just women. Some were gender fluid or held both masculine and feminine energies, and they were considered sacred. So, how did we go from that to where we are now? Hi, I'm Kath, an agnostic, pansexual Filipina. I've explored different religions before settling on agnosticism, and today I'm sitting down with two of my most closest friends, women I've known for over a decade, and they're basically my sisters at this point, to have an open and honest conversation about faith, identity, feminism, queer history, and decolonization. Our first guest is Miss Astra, a trans woman exploring different religions, specifically Hinduism and neo-paganism, seeking spiritual traditions beyond the Abrahamic faiths. Hi ka naman dyan, Bax, for the introduce yourself. Go.
Hello po, I'm Astra, and I will be talking about a lot of things magical, mystical, and esoteric.
Thank you, Miss Astra. For our second guest, she is Miss Andrea Mendoza, a devout Christian woman whose faith remains a central part of her life and identity. Gaudente, hi kami. Introduce yourself. Go.
Hi everybody! Wow, very demure lang kasi ako. But hello, very exciting things to talk about here. So abangan.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much. So as we start, from the moment we enter school, diba, we are taught about the 3 G's of Spanish colonization. So yung God, gold, and glory. Yun yung mga forces na nag-reshape sa Pilipinas. And not just that, our culture and also our faith. But what happens when we look at these forces not as history lessons, but as living legacies? For centuries, Filipinos have carried a faith that was imposed, adopted, and then woven into our identity. But with faith came something else: shame for questioning it, a sense of duty, of fear, of guilt. And yet here we are, Filipinas, searching. Some of us still hold onto faith, others are redefining it, and some have walked away completely. But what we do share is the experience of growing beyond what we were told to believe. Okay, hi guys. This is just the beginning. This conversation barely scratches the surface of what it means to decolonize faith. So, for the audience, if you want more, kumbaga a deeper dive with research examples and historical sources, let us know and we'll make this a series. Just comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe, ha. Also, for the guests, even though we have specific questions for each of us, let us remember na this is a dialogue, so anyone can jump in and share their thoughts. Okay, ready na ba lahat? Ready na ako, te. Kayo?
Ready na
Yes,
po.
Yan. Okay, so hindi tayo makakapag-usap tungkol sa faith in the Philippines without talking about colonization. Kasi, di ba,
Yes.
we all know na Spain ruled us for over 300 years. Grabe yung 300 years, girl, ha? And
Oh.
Catholicism, di ba? And Catholicism became part of our identity. Pero before that, alam natin na our ancestors had their own beliefs. So, curious ang me, for you, Andeng, do you think
Go.
that Filipino Christianity can exist outside its colonial history, or is it too intertwined?
Oh my gosh, my brain cells. But actually, I have a view on that. It's a very tough one. Okay. Because, Filipino Christianity and our colonial history are like adobo and rice. Wow, very Filipino. They've
Gutom
been
ako,
mixed
te.
together for so long. Exactly, nagutom din ako doon. Pero hindi ko kasi fave yun. Yeah, they've been mixed together for so long. It's kind of hard to separate them. Pero you know what? I genuinely think there's hope for a uniquely Filipino Christianity that acknowledges our past while forging its own path. Our brand of Christianity, okay, what I know, it's already pretty special. You guys know this. We talk about this a lot then during our normal convos. We've got our Simbang
Oh.
Gabi, mga Santo Niño festivals, and even our own folk Catholicism that blends indigenous beliefs with Catholic traditions. It's like we've taken this colonial import and made it our own Pinoy style faith. Wow, spaghetti
Ay,
ka.
para spaghetti.
Spaghetti!
Oh.
Go.
Yeah, but here's the thing. To truly separate Filipino Christianity from its colonial roots, we need to do some serious soul searching and historical reckoning.
Ready?
Go.
We can't just ignore the 300 years of Spanish influence, like you mentioned earlier. Maybe it's really about embracing the good parts of our Catholic heritage while also rediscovering and honoring our pre-colonial spiritual practices. Imagine a Filipino Christianity that celebrates indigenous roots. O, diba, Slay?
Shala.
Also
Slay.
empowers women like the babaylans of old, and it's more accepting of different gender expressions. I think that's something really nice to think about. That would be something truly na atin, something of our own, di ba?
Mm-mm.
It's a journey for sure. I think as more Filipinos learn about the pre-colonial history and question the status quo, we might see a more authentically Filipino Christianity emerge.
I love it. Very pakak ang sharing. Go. Thank you so much, Miss Andeng. Okay, so for Miss Astra, here's your question,
Uh-huh.
girl.
Ah,
So, pre-colonial babaylans saw gender duality as sacred. So, how does
oh.
learning this affect your spiritual journey?
Thank you for that wonderful question. And here's my wonderful answer. Go. Pero yeah, growing up, I have always felt inspired and empowered every time na may mention ng mga babaylans and Catalonans during our history slash social studies subject. Siyempre for the my powers, magic, and healing abilities, di ba? Kaya super fascinated talaga ako, madam. And little did I know na there were men pala who were close to
Mm-mm.
identifying as trans women. Di ba?
Mm-mm.
And ayun, they were not just tolerated, they were accepted and respected as official babaylans during pre-colonial times. Though hindi naman specified talaga if they were trans since, ayun nga, they still didn't have any form of labels pa during those times. And it was refreshing for me to know na they were somehow progressive back then when it comes to gender norms. Unlike right now, Napaka-restrictive, no?
True, before talaga
Super.
duality.
Mm-mm.
Ayun. So, aside from that, there existed also yung mga Native Americans, yung Two-Spirit people. Familiar ba kayo dun, guys? Two-Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from what I can remember, they were people who embodied both feminine and masculine energies. So for them, sila yung mga nagiging parang nurturers, shamans, healers. Pwede nga rin sila maging connectors, quote-unquote connectors ng physical and spiritual realms. So they were revered and thought of as sacred souls who have special roles within their communities. So, for me, after learning all about this, parang mas naging aligned ako towards their belief system. Not necessarily their culture, pero yung belief system nila wherein hindi na demonize yung identity ko as a queer person. This is why I'm trying to venture out right now. Currently sa, ayun, specifically neo-paganism and Hinduism, since they acknowledge na not all people are linear and absolutely defined na they're one or the other. For me, they have shown me a world where you can possess the natural feelings slash identity that I aligned with. So,
Shala, I love it.
imagine a world na ito ka lang or ito ka lang. Wala yung
Mm-mm.
iba. Like,
Parang box ka,
linear.
no?
True. So, ayun. Our turn to ask you naman, be. Go,
Go,
Ande. Go, Ande.
Okay.
Ikaw
Oh my God. Are
magtanong.
you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I was born ready.
Okay. Okay, for your first question. Okay. What was it like stepping away from religion in a country where it's expected, especially as a woman?
Oh my God. Grabe ang pa-question. Very personal ang atake. I love that, ah.
True. True.
Honestly, like, seryoso, it was pretty difficult. Confusing at most, honestly. Para kung, alam mo yung sa John Wick, yung excommunicado. Excommunicado.
Oo.
Ganun. Ate ko. Like, tanda ko pa yung first time I ever questioned my faith. I was in kindergarten. It was the Book of Job. Alam niyo ba yung Book of Job?
Yes, yung pinahirapan siya ng sobra-sobra. Tama ba?
Okay. Oh my God. Tapos
Wala
yun.
siya ginawang mali.
Diba?
Ginawa siyang lab rat. Like, one like equals one prayer. Hindi niya to gagawin. Ganun.
Okay. Ayun. Buti alam niyo yung
Oh,
Book of Job.
yes. Of
Kumbaga, I
course.
asked dun sa mga adults, sa teacher ko na, sabi ko, why was Job punished when he didn't do anything wrong? And when he got his blessings back, na parang tenfold, was it a reward or an apology? So I was genuinely confused. But when I voiced it out, it felt like I was committing some kind of blasphemy, like literally, oh my God. So I was like, parang, why was I questioning the divine? Then it hit me as I grew older because I've always loved reading. I've always been open to new things. So I explored different religions, read their holy scriptures, visited their sacred places. We traveled a lot, and I learned even more. I loved experiencing faith through people, through believers, and it became my sort of hyperfixation, especially pag Catholicism. But life happened. The deeper na tumalon ako, the more I felt like it wasn't for me. The structures, the execution of it all, it didn't resonate. It was difficult kasi nakasanayan ko yun na parang, ala, may mali ba sa akin? Kumbaga, what was being taught didn't match what was happening outside the church, in my opinion. And I was exposed to the hypocrisy of many leaders and followers, some with an almost infantile religiosity, and it didn't sit right with me, girl. However, I've always been a believer, and I believe that there is something out there, a being or beings. Even though I admire science, I also acknowledge that life is full of mysteries. Um, and also, I believe that my God is a God of the people, not angry, not judgmental, a fair God, a loving God. So at first, I went through the angry phase. In my opinion, everyone had that phase when they leave. But eventually, I found my footing, especially with the current Pope, Pope Francis. I love you, Pope. I even visited the Vatican and attended a mass there, and in a way, it felt like closure, like me and Catholicism finally shaking hands and parting ways on good terms. And I was also lucky to have an open minded and supportive family. They trusted me and knew that I didn't take this lightly and understood that my decision was based on deep reflection. Till now, I still join my parents in Catholic events and traditions. And not gonna lie, it's very fulfilling, even healing in a way, but I've decided to be agnostic. And yeah, I still pray contrary to what some people think. Because I think a lot of people still confuse being agnostic to being an atheist. So again, I still pray, guys. But for me, this path is more peaceful, being agnostic. So basically, the journey was long, personal, and grueling. And till now, it's still hard to get people to respect my beliefs. Many still say that it's just a phase, you're still so young, especially since women are expected to be the religious kind. But at the end of the day, what matters is my personal relationship with the divine, with myself, and with the people around me. In the end, if there really is a heaven, I am confident enough to say that I lived life as a human who tried and persevered to be the best version of myself. And I guess one that is inspired by the image of Jesus. Ayun.
Thank you, Madam, for the sharing. Thank you so much. What a wonderful
Daming
insight.
realizations.
Daming realizations, di
Mm,
ba? Ang haba
Mm-mm.
talaga kasi ng journey ko, te. Okay, so ang dami na
true.
natin napag-usapan dun about sa Spanish colonial, pre-colonial thingies. Dito naman tayo, dako naman tayo
Diba?
sa gender and sexuality.
Mm.
Kumbaga, religion
Okay.
has shaped how we see gender and sexuality, but not always in ways that make space for people like
Mm-mm.
us, women and the LGBTQIA plus community. So,
Yeah.
for Andeng, as a
Yes.
devout Christian, how do you reconcile with faith, women, and the LGBTQIA plus inclusivity, knowing that religion is often used against them?
This is where it really gets tricky. It's true that religion, especially Catholicism, has often been used to exclude or discriminate against the women and the LGBTQIA plus community. I've witnessed that then growing up. Kind of sad to see, but over time I've had a deeper understanding of it. You know what? I think there's room for change, and I see it happening. Very, and I see it happening, and I think that's really good. A great first step. But first off, maybe let's try to gear towards this for a bit. Let's remember that before the Spaniards arrived, our ancestors actually had much more inclusive view of gender and sexuality. I wanted to insert that then earlier, pero hindi pa buo yung thought ko. But with this question nga, the babaylans, our spiritual leaders, could be men, women, or what we might now call non-binary or transgender individuals. Isn't that amazing? Di ba amazing? Yan, our
Super
pre-colonial culture.
amazing.
Super amazing. Our
Good.
pre-colonial culture saw gender diversity as sacred. They were viewed as someone sacred. Slay. Okay. But now reconciling this with modern Filipino Christianity is the great big challenge. But of course, not impossible. We're seeing more and more of the LGBTQIA plus Catholics who are determined to be both out and part of the church. Parang sinasabi nila, hey God loves me as I am and I belong here too. Yun naman talaga ang gusto mapa-feel nila.
Amen.
Exactly.
The amen. Huh?
For
Good.
us women, it's about reclaiming our space and religious leadership. Di ba kanina nga sa question earlier, women are expected to be more religious. But we have to remember that women were powerful spiritual figures in our pre-colonial society. So maybe it's time to bring that energy back into our churches. I think that the main key is, of course, education and open dialogue. Simply yung mga gantong pag-uusap, this is very important. We need to challenge the idea that being religious means being anti-LGBTQIA plus or anti-women's rights. There are already a lot of Catholic leaders who support gender equality and LGBTQIA plus rights. So we just need more of them, more supporters. And it's also about creating safe spaces within religious communities. Some churches are already becoming more inclusive and welcoming of these members and empowering women leaders. I see that as progress, diba? Great
Yeah.
progress. So, ayon, ultimately, I believe that true faith is about love, acceptance, and compassion. So, maybe if we just, this is a great reminder for everyone listening. If we focus on these core values, we can build a more inclusive religious landscape for all Filipinos, regardless of their gender or sexuality. I mean, it's not easy, but it's definitely worth fighting for.
Tama. I love that. I love that so
Period.
much.
Very Miss Universe.
Period. Very
True.
Miss Universe ang atake. I love it. True. It's about creating safe spaces naman talaga within religious communities. Kasi for me, like, di ba, religion should be based on love din. Hindi lang yung puro scriptures.
Real.
It's about
Yes.
the people eh, di ba? Okay, so,
People
thank
talaga.
you. Thank you for that. For Astra naman, Miss Astra.
Ah, hello,
So,
present.
the question for you naman, nagtataka kaming mga peopleus. So
Uh-huh.
some religions see having both masculine and feminine energies as sacred. So do you feel more spiritually accepted in these traditions?
Thank you for the wonderful question. Personally, yes. Kasi as someone who has always embraced both energies inside me, yung feminine and masculine, it is extremely validating to know na hindi ko kailangan magtiis and conform to just one energy.
Mm,
And with one, I don't necessarily align that much with anymore, which is yun nga, masculine energy. Right now, I am slowly delving and dipping my toes into the waters of Hinduism, since the main gods there is yun nga, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which are hindi sila nababox into just male figures contrary to
Mm,
popular beliefs.
mm-mm,
'Di ba? Dahil nga, ayun, sacred sila and omnipotent, they are revered to be limitless, boundless, and they are not just bound to being one gender. Instead, they can be anything and possess both energy at once. Ayun, so mas nakikita yung power nila kasi they possess both and hindi sila linear na dun sila nalilimitahan. So, ayun, throughout my childhood kasi, I have never really found myself belonging talaga, a sense of belonging in Christianity and Catholicism, which yeah, I grew up with as a Filipino kid. And then although I have found Jesus as someone I can truly love and respect as my symbol of what the Lord should look like and should be, the systems and traditions within Christianity hinders me from doing so. Actually, hindi nga hinders lang eh. They are clearly denying and oppressing my identity as a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, specifically being trans. So, bakit ko naman pagpipilitan pa yung sarili ko with a religion that is constantly rebuking and condemning me to hell? Or so as what they,
mm.
parang pinapakita or pinapamukha nila sa akin. So, ayun nga, yung na-mention din ni Andeng right now, thankfully naman nagkaroon na ng safe spaces din in the Christian
mm,
functions.
Mm-mm.
So, I think it is a great step forward din para sa mga naging bata rin, mga batak na naging
Mm-mm.
katulad ko rin before to
Mm-mm.
explore their spirituality rin and hopefully sana may maging okay and comfortable sa pagiging Kristiyano. Basta
Mm-mm.
right now, for me, I feel more comfortable exploring neo-paganism and Hinduism because I feel validated and seen towards
Mm-mm.
that belief systems. Aside
mm.
from that, I'm not just merely tolerated, pero ayun, honored and respected ng mga katulad ko mga
Oh
bading.
my God. I love that. I love
Yes.
that ending, pa-ending. Not just
Go.
merely tolerated, pero honored and
Honored and respect.
respected.
Period.
Yes.
Tama!
Honestly, true. Actually, may I just add to that? Parang it's always been
Go.
a prayer for me then growing
Uh-huh.
up. Nung
Mm-mm.
na-open din yung mind ko, parang lagi kong naiisip din, tsaka pinagpipray na sana ma-feel ng mga batang yun, yung mga lumalaking gano'n, na parang di sila nakahanap ng space nila sa mga churches, ganyan. Like parang, imagine feeling spiritually empowered rather than constrained by gender expectations. Ang sarap ma-feel nun.
True.
'Di ba?
Sobra.
Pero again, parang before we move forward, remember that spirituality is a personal journey, just like what we're saying here.
Mhm.
What matters most is really finding a path that resonates with your heart and soul. There's no manual to this, guys.
I love it.
So,
True.
ayun, what matters most
Honestly,
talaga is finding your own path. Okay, so now that we're on to this, ikaw naman, Kathleen Ebon.
ako
Ayan,
naman
present.
magtatanong. Ako
Okay,
Go.
naman
go.
magtatanong. For you, Miss Kathleen Yvonne, do you think women and queer people in religious spaces can truly find belonging? Or is religion too rigid? Go.
Um, I really do believe na yes, because that faith because I believe that faith isn't really linear. It's diverse, fluid, and deeply personal. So,
Mm-mm.
religion at its core is supposed to be a connection between oneself and the divine, between people and their communities. And aminin natin, may rigid structures. Pero despite that, um women and queer people have always found ways to carve out their own spaces within them. So, a lot of women and queer individuals have been trailblazers and pushing for greater recognition and working to create safe, inclusive, and nurturing spaces within religious communities. And history proves this. There have been many women theologians, queer clergy, and activists within faith traditions who have challenged exclusionary interpretations and reshaped basically the way people engage with spirituality. And speaking about spirituality, it is complex in itself. And it depends on the health of one's relationship with their faith, their beliefs, and the way they navigate religious spaces. Some find fulfillment within existing traditions, reshaping them from within. Tapos yung iba naman, they step away, finding that yung pagka-rigid ng institutions, hindi nag-align sa truths nila, personal truths. And I believe that neither of the yung choices ay mali. Kasi it's a deeply personal journey. That being said, religious institutions really do need to change kasi many still hold deeply ingrained patriarchal and heteronormative structures that alienate rather than embrace. And while faith can be flexible, institutions often resist evolution, and it's a struggle kasi it's a struggle that many women and queer believers continue to fight till now. But at the end of the day, faith isn't dictated solely by institutions, so it's something that lives within the individual. And for those who find meaning and belonging in religious spaces, their presence alone is an act of resistance and transformation. So, religion may be rigid, but faith is something else entirely.
I agree with that talaga. Kaya guys, it's okay if traditional religious spaces don't feel right to you. There are so many paths to spirituality and community. I love that.
I love that for
Love
us.
that.
The
Go!
For
conversation
us.
is conversationing.
True.
Makabuluhan
Okay.
ng ating pinag-uusapan.
Tama. I
Go!
love that for us.
Kamuluhan.
Okay, so tapos na tayo dun sa pre-colonial kinemperluhus, tapos na rin tayo sa
Mhm.
gender and sexuality. Dako naman tayo sa iba pang topics para fun, di ba? So, tayo as Filipinos, syempre, we were raised religious. So,
Mm-mm.
leaving or even questioning faith, it comes with guilt. So,
True. Yeah.
kumbaga, it's not just about belief lang. It's not just about that lang. It's also about family, tradition, and yung fear of being quote unquote wrong. So,
Yeah, that's
Curious
fun.
naman ako for Andeng. Um,
Hey.
have you ever questioned your faith, and how did you deal with those doubts?
Funnily enough, yung binanggit mo earlier, it's about family, tradition, and fear of being wrong. That hit a spot talaga sa akin. It's very personal, this question, you know. I feel like it's totally normal to have doubts about your faith. Yeah, in fact, I'd say it's healthy to question and examine your beliefs from time to time. I've dealt with this so many times din growing up, especially nung pandemic. Pero ayun,
Mm.
na-open up ko pa to sa family. For me, there have definitely been moments when I've questioned my faith. Maybe it was after hearing a church scandal, ganyan, may mga issues na nag-arise. Or when I saw or heard about religious teachings being used to hurt other people within our church, those times really made me think, is this really what my faith is about? Parang, ayun nga, dealing with those doubts definitely wasn't easy. I felt like it was wrong for me to feel that way. It felt like I was betraying my family, our pastors, ganyan, or my community
Mhm.
just by asking these questions in my head. Hindi ko naman siya vocalize. Guilt trip ang self. But, I realized as I got older, and of course, I got more in touch then with my own understanding of my faith. I realized that blind faith isn't really faith at all. Oh my God, wow, shocking. True faith
Shocking.
can
Go.
withstand questioning. It can come out stronger. But I just want to share how I dealt with my doubts.
Go.
I first talked to people whom I really trusted. I have church leaders, and maybe let's name drop her, si Ate Jassy. I also have non-religious friends who I talk to about this. Just yung mga sinasabi ko kanina, yung mga casual conversations, just to get different perspectives and, help me see things more clearly. Of course, I did my research as someone na very curious sa maraming bagay. I read about the history of my faith, about other religions, and of course about philosophy, some subject that I'm very, very interested in, like nung senior high. Yun. Knowledge is power, ika nga. I also focus on the core values of my faith: love, compassion, and justice. But even though I was doubting specific teachings ng mga pastors ko, yung mga preachers na napapanood ko online or napapakinggan ko in person, these are the values that always rang true for me. So ito yung mga sinasabuhay ko talaga. Sinasabuhay. Pero ayun, I always allowed myself to evolve. My understanding of faith definitely is different from when I was a kid, and I think that's okay. Um, I still also practice mindfulness and meditation. Sometimes connecting with the divine is more about feeling than thinking. This is something I had to learn the hard way because I felt like I always had to have an actual practice of my faith. Hindi siya, tas dun ko lang na-realize, parang medyo late na in my life ko na-realize, parang it's more about feeling than thinking. So, yan guys, remember that having doubts doesn't make you a bad person or a bad believer or makes you less of a Christian.
Tama. Tama.
Very
I feel like a lot
true.
of people will relate. It means you're just thinking critically and trying to understand your faith on a deeper level. And that's actually pretty brave. I find people who think about this on a much deeper level very brave, very smart as well. So, ayun, at the end of the day, faith is a personal journey, like I said. So, it's okay if your path looks different from others. What matters is that you're honest with yourself and open to growth and growing with others. So,
I love
ayun.
it. Tama.
Hey,
Go.
blind faith isn't really faith at all. Main
Hey.
takeaway, very
Hey.
main
Write
takeaway.
that down.
Gonna put on in my notes. Go. Go.
Okay. Again, thank you so much, Miss Ma'am Andrea Mendoza.
You're
Next ka
welcome.
naman, girl. Miss Astra. Okay, so,
Go.
girl, alam natin na liberated ang atake mo, te. So,
Oh,
what does a truly liberated faith look like for you?
uh, So for me, ayun na nga, yung kaninang mini-mention natin sa intro kanina, one that is doubting, one that is ano yun? Questioning their belief, tsaka one that walked away. Ako na yung nag-walked away talaga from the Christianity. Go. Ako na talaga sa part na yon. So for
I
me,
walk out.
yeah, okay na to.
Nagdabog.
Yeah, okay
Okay
na
na.
to. Tama na to, ganun. Pero ayun, a truly liberated faith for me would be a belief system or faith system wherein I don't have to fight for my existence, where I don't have to explain, justify, or defend who I am just to be seen as worthy of love, spirit, and divinity. It's a faith that doesn't force me to choose between my identity and my spirituality.
Tama.
Instead, it recognizes that my transness, my queerness does not hinder the divine, but rather they are expressions of it.
Ay,
No?
I love that, Shala. Go.
They ulit, write that down. It recognizes that my
Writing
transness
it down right now.
and queerness are not obstacles to the divine, but rather expressions of it. Go. For me, spirituality is very much vital in my life kasi I believe that I have been blessed and gifted with spiritual gifts. Not to toot my own horns or anything, pero wherein ayun, ang dami kong for the visions, nagpapakita sa akin ng universe ng mga
Yeah, you're
signs,
gifted.
mga visions. Tapos biglang nagkakatotoo, 'di ba, yung mga kinukuwento ko sa inyo.
Mm-mm.
Tapos ayun, aside from that, very big part na rin ng life ko ever since yung Vedic and Hellenistic astrology. Very big part of my life na since it helped me rationalize things that are not explainable in a logical sense. So, for example, yung mga retrograde chucho, hala, grabe yung stress ko ngayon. Ano nangyayari sa akin? Oh, Mercury
Same.
retrograde. Mercury retrograde. Ano nangyayari? Go. Tsaka, yung mga I'm in medical field. Just for your information, guys. Whee! Ayun, may paniniwala rin ng mga for the new moon, kinamperluhos,
Mm-mm.
ay full moon, mas lalong stress, maraming pasyente. So, that part of belief, parang yun ang naging iffy ako or naging problem ko sa Christianity kasi parang those parts of my spirituality, parang dinidemonize nila in a way na parang burn the witch and the stake, ganun. Parang hindi dapat nagiging practice to ng mga Kristiyano kasi for them, at least for those na nagpi-preach during in the church functions, parang sinasabi nila is parang it is the work of the devil when in fact parang hindi naman, this is all
Mm-mm.
part of the nature. Ano kinalaman ng mga demonyo sa buwan? Ano bang por, porket ba madilim, porket ba gabi, demonyo na? Wala bang Diyos sa gabi, guys? Ano ba? So, ayun, parang a liberated faith for me would be something that will be my source of power and
Mm-mm.
not something that always, kumbaga, incapacitates me or limits me and at the same time oppresses other people. I want it to be something na it would celebrate my gender diversity, my queerness, ayun nga, from a sacred gifts from the universe. And aside from that, I want my faith na ito yung nag-empower other people rather than oppressing them na telling them what to do na hindi to pwede. Demonyo yan. Masama yan. Gusto ko yung faith na everything is acceptable. Yeah,
Yes.
pero syempre hindi naman kasama
Mm.
yung mga atrocious acts na killing of people, kukulong sa
Mm-mm.
ICC, ganun. Hindi naman kasali yun, guys.
And
Pero yung wala kang tinatapakan tao, pero you're still
mm-mm.
doing your faith and practicing
Yeah.
it. I think that is the faith that I want, and that is a liberated faith for me. And that's all. Thank you. Mwah.
Mm.
What?
And with that being said, whee!
Uy, pero Pero
with
ang
the
ganda nga talaga nun kasi
ah,
parang, oo nga, laging dinidemonize yung mga ganong klaseng beliefs. Eh,
uh-huh,
katulad ng Moon, o kaya kung sino man, katulad ng parang animism beliefs, ang
uh-uh,
dinidemonize talaga, no? Eh, if you think about it, galing din yun kay Lord. So,
Mm.
di ba,
true.
parang why are you demonizing something that is given to you? Na parang gift from the divine. Ewan ko.
Yeah.
True. Aside from that, parang dun din nagsistem yung parang monotheistic na parang don't worship idols kinumperpelos na parang ang naging reputation tuloy ng Diyos in the Christian belief, parang he's a jealous God. When in
Mm.
fact, ang pangit naman nun kapag jealous ka, like, it's
Kaya
giving
nga eh.
insecure.
Oo.
It's
Giving
giving
me
insecure, di
insecure.
ba? Parang dapat omnipotent ka, parang dapat wala kang pake, like, hindi ka affected if ever, di ba? Pag
Deadma.
you know your power.
Dead
Yeah.
ma sa bashers.
Same.
True.
True. Kapag maraming ino-oppress, it's giving insecure talaga. Go. Pero yun na nga, we digress. We digress.
We digress.
Let's regress to the Congress.
Or the
Sa'yo naman
rhyme.
last, be, Kathlyn.
Sige,
Ikaw na
go.
ulit, ikaw na lang magtanong ulit, anding, go.
Okay,
Drop it.
sige. Drop it like it's hot. Okay. So for your question, how do you deal with guilt when faith is so deeply ingrained in your identity?
Oh my God. Oh, inong reaction.
Ito na, sa'yo na yung part ng ano, be, guilt. Walking with guilt.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
So, ayun, eto na nga. So, I've always been the type kasi who, kasi wala talaga akong pake what others say about me. Kasi,
Deadma.
I know, yeah, basically dead ma sa
that's, yeah,
Basher.
yeah.
kasi, honestly, I don't just do things kasi for the sake of it. And I always do things with purpose. So,
Mm-mm.
this journey, this decision is one of them. But no matter how certain I am kasi about stepping away from organized religion, there are moments when guilt creeps in, especially when I find myself wanting to pray. I mean, I know that prayers know no bounds, but sometimes I wonder, is it only for the religious? Am I still allowed to seek comfort in it? That lingering doubt feels like an old habit, and it's one that's hard to shake off when faith has been so deeply woven into my identity. Pero like, naalala ko kasi yung speech about certainty that was said in Conclave, yung movie. And ayan,
Mm-mm.
apologies if I read almost the whole script, pero it's just so profound to
Go.
me, and I hope na you guys, na guests dito, and
Mhm.
yung audience din, parang makarelate din or may malaman na
Mm.
bongga, di ba? Shala,
Go.
gano'n. So, sabi doon, ito yung quote-unquote to te. So sabi is, St. Paul said, be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ. To work together, to grow together, we must be tolerant. No one person or faction seeking to dominate another. And speaking to the Ephesians, who were, of course, a mixture of Jews and Gentiles, Paul reminds us that God's gift to the church is its variety. It is this variety, this diversity of people and views, which gives our church its strength. And over the course of many years, in the service of our mother, the church, let me tell you that there is one sin, which I have come to fear above all others, and that is certainty. Certainty is the great enemy of unity. Certainty is the deadly enemy of tolerance. And even Christ was not certain at the end. Sabi nga niya, my God, why are you forsaken me? And he cried out in his agony at the ninth hour on the cross. So that our faith is a living thing, precisely because it walks hand in hand with doubt. If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery, and therefore no need for faith. Sabi nila doon, since, ayun, conclave nga, kailangan nila mag-vote for another pope. Sabi nila is, let us pray that God will grant us a pope who doubts. And let him grant us a pope who sins and asks for forgiveness. And one who carries on. So, ayun, tapos na yung quote, di ba? Ang haba, te. Pero, hopefully, nagustuhan nyo kasi gandang-ganda talaga.
Ang ganda.
Very, very profound.
True. True.
Ayun, ilalagay ko dun sa may video natin yung mismong quote na mabasa ng audience natin, di ba?
Mm-mm.
So, yung part na yun, that stuck with me and somehow healed something in me. Because, di ba, we're often taught that faith is about absolute certainty. But sabi rin dun na even Christ himself in his final moments doubted. So if doubt was part of Jesus' journey, why should mine be any different? And then there's this part about variety. The idea that faith was never meant to be uniform. Kasi diba growing up, a lot of people were made to feel like faith was something rigid, something that had to be followed in a singular way. Na if you strayed too far, if masyadong marami kang tinanong na questions, or if you saw things differently than most people who are believers too, somehow you're a lesser believer or person. But faith was never supposed to be a mold that everyone had to fit into. It was always meant to be a living, breathing thing shaped by experience. Also culture and personal understanding. I believe that if faith is truly strong, then it should be able to withstand difference. It should thrive in diversity and not reject it. So why should I feel guilt for finding my own way? Why should anyone? So I cope with it by simply talking to God. My way on my terms. No structured prayers, no rehearsed words, just me and the divine. Na, however I understand them, yung divine na yun. And in those moments, I feel at peace because faith isn't about following rules, it's about connection. And I choose to believe that a God who is loving, just, and kind would never turn away from anyone seeking them, no matter where they stand. Ayun. Yeah. Daming save.
Go. Go.
Ganda nun. Ang ganda nun.
Thank you so
Ganda. Wow. Naiyak ko.
Umiyak. Eto, tissue na. Okay. So, ang ganda na ng pag-usapan natin.
True.
Honestly, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. We've learned so
Honestly,
much na rin
yeah.
talaga.
I hope na nagustuhan rin ng audience natin. And sana, nandyan pa kayo. Pinakinggan niyo yung buong podcast. Kasi hello.
Oo, kasi may exam to, di ba?
Gabi naman sa exam.
May exam!
May homework din to,
Exam.
guys. Kailangan to sa homework nyo.
Okay, so, satisfied? Satisfied na ba? Mag-ending na ako, girl.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay na?
go.
Go.
Sige. So, ayun guys. Naka-reach na kayo sa final moments ng podcast namin. So I hope you guys enjoyed. At the heart of it all, faith, let us remember, that faith is not just about certainty. It is about searching, questioning, and growing. Faith is not stagnant, nor is it confined to rigid traditions. It breathes, it evolves, it wrestles with doubt. So through this conversation, we've seen how faith, or even the absence of it, is deeply personal yet undeniably shaped by history, culture, and experience. So as Filipinas, kaming tatlo, and even you guys, yung audience, we carry the weight of a colonial past, but we also have the power to reclaim, redefine, and rediscover what faith means to us. Whether we hold on to God, wrestle with guilt, or grow beyond belief, our journey is valid. It is in these conversations, like yung napag-usapan natin kanina, where different perspectives meet, that we find not just answers, but new questions worth exploring. And guys, this is just the beginning. This is part of a much larger conversation. If this resonated with you guys, hi audience, please share your thoughts, comment down below, and let's keep this dialogue going because faith, like identity, is never a finished story. It is always unfolding. Okay, guys. Ayun, thank you. This is God, Guilt, and Growing Beyond Belief, a Filipino podcast on decolonizing faith. Thank you so much.
Thank you po. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Write down 10 items in your quiz.